Are Jesus bones in America? Ancient Templar leader claims Jesus bones are hidden in two secret use vaults, sparking controversy. A modern day leader of a group tracing its roots to the legendary Knights Templar has made a stunning claim. The bones of Jesus Christ and those of his family are secretly stored in two vaults somewhere in the northwestern United States. Let's get into the thick of it in today's AI podcast episode.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We unpack fascinating, sometimes complex information to help you get truly well informed.
And today, we're tackling something really out there.
Yeah, a claim so audacious it could, well, literally rewrite history and core beliefs. Get this. What if the actual bones of Jesus Christ and his family are not only real, but hidden right here in the United States?
It's an absolutely extraordinary assertion, really challenges, centuries of historical and theological understanding. So for this deep dive, we are dissecting this highly controversial claim. It comes from a modern-day leader of a group that traces its roots back to the legendary Knights Templar.
That's right. Our mission here is to explore, okay, who's making these claims? What exactly are they saying? What are the huge implications historically, theologically, and crucially, the significant skepticism around it all? We're aiming to help you cut through the noise, really understand what's at stake.
So our main source today is an article covering a pretty revealing interview on the Danny Jones podcast. The guest was Timothy W. Hogan.
And he's the current Grand Master of a modern Templar order.
Correct. That's his title.
Okay, so let's jump right in. What's Hogan's, central revelation?
Well, he claims, quite explicitly, that the bones of Jesus Christ and also his family members are secretly stored.
Where?
In two vaults. Undisclosed locations, somewhere in the northwestern United States.
Wow. Okay. In the U.S., that's a monumental claim right out of the gate. How did they supposedly get there?
Hogan's story is that the remains were originally found in the Talpiot tomb. That's in East Jerusalem.
Okay, I've heard of that tomb.
Right. And he alleges they were later transported to the New World by the Templars themselves.
And why? What was the motive?
He says it was to protect them, specifically to shield them from the Vatican.
Okay. And what exactly does he claim is in these vaults? Does he get specific?
Oh, very specific. He says inside these vaults are ossuaries. Those are the stone bone boxes,
Right.
allegedly recovered from that ancient tomb. And he claims they're inscribed with names like Yeshua bar Yehoseph.
Which translates to Jesus, son of Joseph.
Exactly. And also names like Mary Magdalene and even John the Baptist.
He actually quoted this directly, didn't he?
His quote was, "Inside them are the 6 arks we acquired, as well as several ossuaries containing what we believe are the bones of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, John the Baptist, and their children."
Children. Wow. Okay, that adds another layer. That's an astonishing level of detail for something supposedly so secret.
It really is. And it brings us straight to the Talpiot tomb itself. Remember, it was unearthed back in 1980 in East Jerusalem.
And it did contain ossuaries.
It did. 10 of them. 6 had inscriptions. And yeah, the one naming Yeshua bar Yehoseph immediately sparked this huge debate. Could it be the Jesus?
And this is a big but, right? The academic world, archaeologists, biblical scholars, they mostly disagree.
Overwhelmingly, yes. They've largely dismissed the idea it's Jesus of Nazareth.
Why?
Well, 2 main reasons. 1, a lack of, definitive proof. And 2, crucially, those names Jesus, Joseph, Mary were incredibly common back then.
So finding a Jesus, son of Joseph, isn't necessarily like finding the Jesus son of Joseph.
Precisely. It wasn't a unique identifier. But Hogan insists the Templars, his predecessors, accessed this tomb way back in the Middle Ages.
And have been protecting the contents ever since.
That's his claim. And he brings the Vatican back into it, suggesting they've known about these relics for a long time, even tried to seize them.
He's quoted saying something like, oh.
Yeah, if the bones had been turned over to the Pope, they would have disappeared. He frames it as the Vatican wanting to suppress evidence that contradicts the doctrine of Jesus' physical resurrection.
Okay, so if we just entertain Hogan's claims for a second, the implications for core Christian beliefs are absolutely massive.
Huge.
Let's dig into that. His view on the resurrection, for example, it's completely different from the mainstream understanding.
Totally different. He argues it wasn't a literal, physical body coming back to life.
So what was it, according to him?
He calls it a symbolic awakening, an anastasis, or a kind of spiritual enlightenment.
He actually said the resurrection was not a return from death in a physical sense. It was an awakening of consciousness Gnosis.
Right. Sosis, that's the term. And he adds another layer. He claims his Templar order believes in reincarnation.
Reincarnation. How does he connect that?
He points to Bible passages, like where disciples apparently referred to John the Baptist as Elijah reborn. He uses that as sort of textual support for this belief within their tradition.
It's certainly a radical reinterpretation.
It is. And what's interesting here isn't just how bold the claim is, but maybe why it resonates with some. It taps into that desire to question established stories, maybe find alternative spiritual paths.
That's a good point. People looking for different answers. But we have to stress, these views are completely at odds with mainstream Christian teaching.
Oh, absolutely. The physical resurrection is foundational in Christianity.
So theologians, church authorities, they pretty much dismissed Hogan's statements.
Yeah, generally dismissed as fringe, speculative, lacking any real basis.
But Hogan's reinterpretation doesn't stop with the resurrection, does it? He goes further into Jesus's personal life.
He does. This is probably just as controversial, if not more so. He asserts Jesus was married.
To Mary Magdalene.
Yes, and that they had children together.
Right. I remember the quote mentioned children. And he has this really complex backstory for it.
It's quite the narrative. He claims Mary Magdalene was originally married to John the Baptist.
Okay.
And had children with him. Then, after John was executed, she married Jesus, who, according to Hogan, was John's cousin.
And his justification is?
He says it was customary at the time for a widow to marry her husband's cousin.
And so are their children's bones also supposedly in these vaults?
That's what he infers. He stated, their children's bones are now interred with theirs.
Again, we have to be really clear here. Is there any support for this in the standard historical or religious texts?
Absolutely not. Zero support in the canonical scriptures. Historians, religious scholars, widely reject it.
Traditional texts portray Mary Magdalene as a follower, right? A devoted disciple.
Exactly. Not his wife. And there's simply no credible historical or archaeological evidence backing the idea that Jesus had children.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating example of how a narrative can be built, but without, verifiable foundations.
Which brings us neatly to the current situation. These alleged vaults, the artifacts, and the massive skepticism. Hogan says there are 2 vaults in the U.S., undisclosed.
Right. But he also mentions a third vault.
Where's that one?
In Istanbul, Turkey. He claims it's protected by Turkish antiquities.
And what's supposedly in that one?
He says it houses a box that resembles those found in the Sacred Ark.
Okay. And he mentioned a change. There used to be more vaults.
Yeah, he said there used to be 7 vaults, but now they're condensed to just 2 in the U.S. and 1 in Istanbul.
Does he claim the Turkish authorities know about this Istanbul vault?
He states, quite clearly, Turkish officials are fully aware of the vault and are in communication with us.
And he keeps coming back to the Vatican, alleging they tried to get into these vaults.
Yes, he claims they attempted to access at least 1 vault in the past, but failed. His interpretation. They want to suppress evidence that contradicts their narrative.
So the massive question hangs in the air. Where's the proof? Given how extraordinary these claims are, why no DNA testing?
And that is the absolute critical point.
Yeah.
Hogan himself admits the remains haven't been subjected to DNA testing.
But he hopes they will be.
He expresses hope, yeah. That future science, maybe combined with historical records, old ship logs, could verify it all.
Yeah.
Even hinted about,
Sure.
He said, certain fragments recently recovered from the Talpiot tomb may allow us to establish a genetic match if everything lines up.
Kind of dangling a possibility there.
And his stance is one of protection, not secrecy.
That's how he frames it. This isn't something we're trying to hide. We've been trying to protect it.
But let's be real. This is where the critical analysis has to come in hard. These assertions.
Yeah.
They've been met with overwhelming skepticism, right? Absolutely. Historians, theologians, archaeologists, they all point to the same thing. A complete lack of verifiable physical evidence.
So no peer-reviewed studies.
None.
No genetic analysis published.
Nope.
No open access to these supposed vaults.
Definitely not. So Hogan's claims, however detailed or intriguing, remain firmly in the category of, well, myth. Conspiracy theory, perhaps.
It's also worth remembering the whole context of the Knights Templar themselves. They're often wrapped up in these kinds of mysteries.
That's very true. Founded way back 1119 AD, initially to protect pilgrims.
Right, after the First Crusade, but then disbanded pretty dramatically.
Yes, 1312. Pope Clement V, allegations of heresy, though many believe those charges were politically motivated, a way for the French king to get their wealth.
And ever since then, the Templars have become these legendary figures, linked to hidden treasures, sacred relics, the Holy Grail, all sorts of sensational tales.
Exactly. They occupy this space in historical mystery lore.
So this deep dive really leaves us pondering, doesn't it? Are Hogan's claims, however unlikely they seem, a potential earthquake for biblical archaeology?
Or are they simply the latest, maybe most audacious chapter in that very long, very captivating legacy of Templar myths and legends?
Until, and this is the key, until tangible, verifiable proof emerges.
And we mean solid, scientific, peer-reviewed proof.
The mystery of these supposed sacred vaults and the bones they might contain, it just has to remain a controversial legend, whispered about perhaps, but not established fact.
Right. It stays in the shadows of history, you could say.
And you know, this whole exploration really challenges us, you the listener too, to think about something. What is the responsibility of history of archaeology when faced with claims like this? Claims that touch so deeply on faith and beliefs held by millions.
That's a profound question. How do we balance a really compelling story, a narrative that captures the imagination, with the absolute need for rigorous, verifiable evidence?
Yeah, and what does that mean for how you approach information, especially information that claims to completely redefine history? It really shows how these historical claims, especially the big ones challenging core beliefs, force us to confront that tension, the tension between a great story and hard proof.
A tension that, honestly, probably continues to shape how we understand our past, and maybe even our present.
Definitely something to keep thinking about. Keep those questions in mind as you continue your own deep dives into the world around you.
Were to be authenticated, should they be displayed to the public or reburied in accordance with religious customs? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.